Among all of the characters that I tried out, all 6 of those characters, who did I like playing as and who did I dislike? By far, the character that I loved playing as the most was the Hulk. I don't know, I believe it's the speed. He just moved the most fluidly out of all of the other characters. Like, whereas him and Black Widow, because Black Widow was also very fast, but unlike Black Widow, it was extremely satisfied to break stuff and hit enemies with the Hulk, because he's the freaking Hulk. Black Widow, I did mention this in my first mission playthrough, was that it was a bit unsatisfying using Black Widow to pummel people, because using her, there was much less impact versus like the other characters, so it felt like she was hitting a bunch of pillows whenever she would hit people, versus like the Hulk or Captain America or something. When they hit people, you really feel the impact, and it is huge and satisfying. Not so much with Black Widow. But yeah, in terms of speed, Black Widow and the Hulk were the most satisfying to use. But like overall, the Hulk is by far the easiest to pick up and just play and just enjoy throughout the game. And I believe possibly they made him that way because he's the first character you get after the first mission, and I guess you play a lot of the game as him. I don't know. So that's interesting, because I would have just assumed that they would have given that sort of role to Iron Man, because he's still like by far the most popular Avenger. But yeah, Hulk is the easy pick up and play character. He's just really addictive to play. Even though a lot of the stuff you do in this game is extremely repetitive, it just feels nice and comfortable, and you just wanna play the game over and over again. Particularly when you're using the Hulk, and that was one of the main reasons why I lasted 8 hours through this janking, glitchy mess of a game. Despite the fact that by the end of the game, I had access to 4 characters. I did use everyone quite a bit, but not nearly as much as the Hulk. I would just choose to use the Hulk all the time, especially as a band-aid for every other piece of hurt the game would give me. So every controller disconnect, or every crash, or background graphic glitch, the Hulk would just make it all better, because he was just a joy to control in this game. So yeah, Hulk would be my number 1 character. Second would be Captain America. Captain America felt very Batman-like, oddly enough, and it was very extremely satisfying. He uses shield. Third would be Black Widow. I like her Widow line. I like the way she traverses the world with her Spider-Man swings. And I think her invisibility special attacks are neat, so I like her. Next one would be Iron Man. I actually don't like Iron Man very much in this game, primarily because I think that long range or projectile attacks, except for Captain America's shield, are extremely jank in this game. It's really jank to like, because what happens is the game has this smooth, continuous momentum. Whenever you're doing purely melee, you're running and jumping and switching from enemy to enemy, very similar to how you might play, not exactly the same, but kind of similar to how you might play in the Batman or the Batman Arkham or the Sony Spider-Man game. But unlike those games, when you switch to projectile attacks like web shooting and batarang throwing and Batman and Spider-Man's other gadgets meld seamlessly with their other attacks, so that your flow during combat is unbroken. You're just continuously attacking no matter what you're doing, either melee or projectile. But here, when you switch from melee to projectile, the game immediately stops. You have to stop and aim around and choose a target or whatever it is, then fire your projectile attack, then do that over and over. Yeah, try to aim, because aiming is extremely janky in this game as far as I can tell. You can lock on, but I don't know, the controls are jank, man. It has nothing to do with the glitches, it's just how they made projectiles in this game. So projectiles are pretty terrible in this game, in my opinion. So that's the reason why I actually dislike Iron Man, because appropriately, his whole game plan revolves around his flying and his repulsor blast and his unibeam and stuff. and they're all extremely jank. You see, like, if you saw in my first mission playthrough, I missed the unibeam at one point because using projectiles in this game is extremely unintuitive, and it's just something you just have to get used to. By the closing hours of my playthrough with this beta, I did get used to using projectiles, and I was no longer unhindered by their use, but they still felt unnatural and janky, and it kind of takes you out of the flow of combat when you use them. Flying also felt extremely janky, and again, that's a huge part of Iron Man's game plan, and I don't like it because, like, when you're floating, it's fine, but then you're just sitting there. You're like literally a sitting duck, and enemies can just shoot you from far away, like whenever. And there are a ton of snipers in this game, and I kept dying using Iron Man a lot because of this. So dashing with Iron Man is extremely satisfying because he uses his jets and stuff to dash. So he has an incredibly fast and efficient dash, but like, I hated flying with him. It's very satisfying to fly when you're just exploring the world, but flying is pretty useless as far as I can tell in actual combat. Now the next character that I like... Now, why do I rate Iron Man fairly high despite the fact that I hate using his repulsors and his flying? It's because of the freaking Hulkbuster, man. Iron Man's super move in this game has you transform into the freaking Hulkbuster. And if you watched my War Table reaction where they revealed Hulkbuster for the first time, it just blew my mind that you can just use this thing in this game. And I was wondering at the time how much you could use the Hulkbuster, and during the beta, it just blew my mind that you can use it pretty much almost whenever you want, because it's just one of Iron Man's regular moves. See, it's his super move, you know? So that's one reason that I rank him fairly high, despite the fact that I hate his repulsors and his flying. Afterward would be Thor. Now, the reason I don't like Thor as much as the rest was, one, I didn't have a lot of playtime with him. And two, I really dislike the fact that you have to call Mjolnir back. Like, I feel that Mjolnir should just return to you automatically. Like, I don't see any reason why you would ever not want Mjolnir to return. It's like Captain America's shield, you know? Like, Captain America's shield, it just bounces and it returns to Cap's hand automatically. Why isn't Mjolnir like this? So, I feel, because of this, I feel like Thor is just a more terrible version of Captain America in this game. Now, the character that I like the least is, unfortunately, Kamala Khan. Now, I was actually really looking forward to this character because it's interesting that they're putting such a new character in the major role like this, so I was very excited to see how they would handle the character, and she's just Mr. Fantastic from the Ultimate Alliance games, and almost no one enjoys playing Mr. Fantastic in the Ultimate Alliance games. I just like using Mr. Fantastic every once in a while because, like, in Ultimate Alliance you would get team bonuses. So when you had all of the Fantastic Four in the same team, you get like this bonus and then an awesome team super and things like that. So every once in a while I would use Mr. Fantastic, but he was never a fun character to use in video games. That's why he's like literally never in the Marvel vs. Capcom games. The closest we get is Super Skrull, but that's a different matter because he doesn't have just Mr. Fantastic's stretchy powers. He has like the powers of all four, so he doesn't count. He's way more interesting. Are you having fun yet? But Ms. Marvel, as far as I can tell, really just has the stretchy powers. So that's not very interesting in my opinion. They didn't do anything too unique to the character gameplay-wise that would make up for this fact. Plus, she feels really slow to use, you know? So every time you would throw a punch or a kick or whatever, her limbs would like flail around because she's like stretching all over the place. And it just doesn't feel incredibly natural, you know? Again, like versus other characters that feel more satisfying to play, like Hulk, Captain America, and Black Widow. So And again, that's pretty terrible because her actual dramatic scenes and the way she interacts with the characters and her dialogue is just really good. She's written very well in this game, at least the scenes of her that I saw in this beta. Plus her constant like banter with the Hulk during his mission was very charming, and I liked her character very much. It's just her gameplay just never clicked with me. I'll give her a shot again when the main game comes out, but just from what I tried in this beta, I really didn't like her. In the end, I hated this beta, but the gameplay and the story made me even more hype for the main game coming out on September 4th. And I guess that's the main point, is for this beta to hype you out even more for the main game release. And it did its job. It caused me physical and mental anguish for 8 hours, but I guess in the end it was worth it because it made me look forward to the main game even more. And what about you guys? Did you guys try out the beta? What did you think? Did you like the beta more than me? Most likely, the beta was less glitchy and jank maybe in for the PS4 and Xbox versions. Games usually are a lot more glitchy and jank for PC releases just because everyone's PC is different. It's not like for the PS4 and the Xbox, like everyone pretty much has the same PS4, PS4 Pro, Xbox One X, Xbox One S, whatever. So there's less variation. It's a more controlled environment. So that typically results in less jank and less glitchiness. So I unfortunately got the most glitchy beta, most likely. So my point is, did you guys play the beta on a different platform? Did you play it on PS4? Did you play it on Xbox? If you did, how was your experience? Did you also play it on Steam like me? Did you have the same amount of glitchiness, or did you have less? Did you enjoy the beta even less than I did? Did you enjoy the beta more? Let me know down in the comments and we can talk about it. And this has been Asian Action Actor. If you like my thoughts and impressions on the Marvel's Avengers Steam beta, please click like down below and subscribe to see more of my awesome content. And while you're here, you might want to see the other video games that I have already played through on my channel.